Welcome back to Ireland Esports Collegiate Series, Winter Series, powered by Natives. We are here with two teams in the start of the playoffs here. We have UCD Leviathans versus Maynooth, and it's going to be an interesting matchup, bearing in mind that they played together, against each other, I should say, in the first round, or the second round of the Swiss stage. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, see if, UCD can pull it back in this matchup against Maynooth. But I'm joined with my lovely co-caster here, Zep. Zep, how are you feeling today?
Feeling absolutely fantastic and really looking forward to getting these games underway. It should be a very competitive game between these two teams in this best of seven. A long road ahead for them in the best of seven. It's a marathon, not a sprint when it comes to a BO7, trying to feel out the opposition, maybe playing one way for a certain amount of games, then having to try and, change up the way you play to keep it fresh and keep the opposition guessing, because, at the end of the day, Rocket League, each game can play very similar if you wanted to. And because of that, teams have the time to kind of pose questions and answers to each other. They're able to play a certain way and then have that counteracted. And it's all about, when you're playing through, you're going into a game one, as we always say, they're feeling each other out as an opposition. Are you really going to go in and give all your tricks away and how you want this series to play out? Or are you going to kind of hold things in the back pocket for later on, for when it really matters, when you're going to that crunch time of these games? So super fascinating to see how both of these teams set off. And, we're nearly ready to go here as well. So just can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, bearing in mind that they have played against each other in the very early stages of this competition. So it'll be interesting to see, are they going to take it slow on the first game or two and kind of feel each other out a bit more, see what each other is capable of, or if they're going to just go out guns blazing straight from the get-go?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough question to ask. I suppose we will only see when we get in there. But as you say, given the fact that teams have played against each other before, they might have an idea of how they want to shape up against each other. But depending on how long ago that was as well, teams may have changed their play style. So it's only a case of knowing once we get into it. And as this game number one gets underway, it'll be really interesting to see who tries to dominate the play over this first couple of minutes.
Yeah, and UCD is on an attack from the get-go, really pulling the ball up to their opponent's side of the pitch, going for those goals, trying to create those opportunities for themselves, not quite hitting the back of the net like they hoped, but their opponent's defense doesn't seem to be quite there at the moment. Maybe it's just, getting into that moment of being in a game, but definitely going on the counter there. The opponent's not just having that defense there. They've got the clear there, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things pan out, because they're both very much attacking at the moment. But Rocket League is just a game of being able to have that rotation gameplay in them to, when they go on the attack, to be able to fall back and go back on the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And as this first minute is just finished, it has been a case of both of these teams just trying to maybe get a little bit warmed up when it comes to the attacking prowess, the way that they're going forward. Nothing has been super dangerous or on target as of yet, but the defense has not really been there until that moment. A little bit lax, but managing to stop the shot in the end up, but the attack still coming in, and that goes in the back of the net to make it 1-0 with 3 minutes 43 left on the clock. Not the cleanest goal you will see this year in Irish Collegiate for Rocket League. It's been a very scrappy start between both of these teams, and I think the goal kind of reflects the way that start has been.
Yeah, I think it was possibly just a case of poor ball reading on the defense there, but they've come back. They've evened the score up for a 1-1 after that conceded goal, trying to make sure that they're still in this game, not let their opponents get too much confidence going in throughout the rest of this round, and really just making sure they know that they're there to play.
Yeah, absolutely. The ball pinched up nicely there for a good kickoff finish. And that's kind of the beauty of Rocket League. You can spend so much time trying to work on a goal, but ultimately a kickoff could undo all of that hard work. So when you get that lead, it's important to make sure you get a few goals under your belt. Try and give yourself some of that breathing room so you can expand and experiment with how you want to play, knowing that you can always fall back on the old faithful techniques if things don't quite go your way. But once again, as this thing is dead even, it's off the crossbar, should I say. It just needs a tap in, but defended immaculately there. I do not know how that one didn't go in, but with just under 2 minutes gone, both of these teams level and the intensity is beginning to rise.
Yeah, that was some great defensive play, being in that position to stop that ball from going in, even though it was halfway through the net at that point, but managed to just knock it out, keep it out of their goalposts for the time being, and now are on the counter-attack. Saying that, their counter-attack's kind of being broken down a little bit there, a little bit of a clearance, but again, commentators curse, their counter-attack, you know, it's one after the other.
Yeah, there's quite strong halfway line control from UCD here at the moment until this very instance where we saw that shot come in, where they were holding off that counter attack well. But of course, if it's not really a case of if, it's when you get that ball up the pitch. It'll always happen at some point, and didn't make the most out of it there. So now once again, it is sort of a back and forth affair. It's kind of hard to tell, you know, which team has had more control of this game. It has been incredibly scrappy. Both of these teams are definitely getting warmer as this game goes on, but no one's really putting their foot down in this game and saying, this is one that I want to win for our team. It seems to be a case of these teams recognize that they're in it for the long haul, so they're both feeling each other out, seeing what they could do, because obviously they need to experiment with a lot more and see what works, as they have a lot longer of the series to go. They cannot rely on one play. They need to rely on a bunch, but with Ryan sending that one through, that could be the breaking point. They might be able to hold that lead. With 1 minute 45 to go, it's a big ask, but finally getting themselves a lead.
Yeah, and that was some beautiful gameplay there. Great teamwork with Ryan coming in to get that goal off as his teammate knocked it off the backboard. Just being in those positions at the right moment is kind of, you know, a great team player moment, but also, you know, it's a good read of the ball and how it's going to play out.
Absolutely, and now a minute 30 left. UCD trying to go up front themselves, but this is where they could get done in by a counter-attack when the alarm bells start setting in and they want to try and commit a little more forward. They could find themselves on the back foot in the defense, but managing to get that one cleared back up to the halfway line, but not out of the woods yet. That's coming off the crossbar, off the backboard, should I say, but nothing really being done with it. And, you know, credit to Maynooth, looking relatively safe at the moment. But UCD are going to be trying to edge their way back into this one.
Yeah, UCD seem to have quite an interesting tactic when it comes to the defense of having all three of their players kind of on that back line. But when Maynooth are on the attack, they're looking very aggressive, looking very dangerous. And it's just a case of how long can UCD's defense keep that up?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're hitting the nail on the head with that one, but, you know, 30 seconds left now. It really is do or die time when it comes to this game one, and they are holding on well. Again, still very back and forth, you know, very much just sitting around that midfield. No team really presenting any strong danger going forward, and this game now sort of trickling to an end. Maybe one more chance to come in, but nowhere near the goal, and looks like this game is going to end in a 2-1 and a nice game one. Long way left to go, but potentially the shot coming in here. Good block. Really good save. That was needed, and Maynooth take that game one relatively comfortably in the end up, I'd say.
Yeah, Maynooth seemed to be in control a lot of the time with the attacking play, whereas UCD had a very strong defense and were able to stop a lot of those shots from going in. But, you know, Maynooth just managed to slide, 2 goals past them. But going into this second game, it'll be interesting to see how that affects the mental of the players. How is UCD going to be feeling after being a game down going into this next round? Is that going to give them motivation to attack a little bit more, or are they going to still stick with that kind of 3 players back tactic for defense?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a really long way to go. I doubt any team is really reading too much into that game one now after it's closed, but definitely more attack needed. Because ultimately, you know, you can play whatever way you want, you can play well in the defense, but if you're conceding 2 and only scoring 1, then that's 2 too many. So you got to try and change it up. But an early shot coming in. What a shot and what a goal. Maynooth getting an early lead here in game 2. What an absolutely fantastic shot, pinching it off the ground and sending it up into the back of the net. What a great goal to score.
That was brilliant striking play from Krolix there, just managing to get that pinch right where he wanted and score that goal. Not really much UCD could have done to save that. There was an attempt, but just wasn't enough time to stop that very fast ball going to the back of their net.
Oh, another one coming through. Nova sending it in, and you know, talking about how this is a marathon, not a sprint. I already mentioned it once, we'll definitely mention it again throughout this broadcast, but you have to say one thing with a best of 7 is that there's plenty of time to correct against momentum, but if you can really build up momentum, you can storm through games. And if you're not careful, if you're the side of UCD, you can find this series floundering away from you unless you can start scoring a couple of goals, because at the end of the day, 2 games in, you have only 1 goal to your name. And Ryan, after getting another for Maynooth as not even a minute in, this is a dominant performance. The passing's exquisite. The shot is perfect right into that bottom corner. And UCD just have no answers at the moment.
Yeah, it seems that Maynooth kind of are on that push. They're really trying to open that scoreline as much as they can. They're very much on the attack this game compared to, last game they had a couple moments of attack, but couldn't quite get as many goals as maybe they wanted to. But here they're really going for it. They're really trying to open that scoreline up and make sure that UCD can't come back in this game.
Yeah, I mean, they're really, I think putting the nail in the coffin early on is the way you'd have to look at it, because, UCD so far this game, I mean, not to besmirch the great name of UCD, but they really haven't offered anything as of yet when it comes to real substance and showing what they could do. And it almost looked like there for a second they were about to show, but I think it's just a case of, as another goal just creeps in, sort of an unlucky goal, you have to look at the case of UCD and just say, well, we haven't actually seen what you guys can bring to the table yet, so that's something Maynooth are always going to have to keep aware of. But to be fair to them, in this game too, they haven't put a foot wrong. They're just continuing to play their game and play it well. UCD, plenty of time in this series to turn it around, but when it comes to this game, it could be all but gone unless you start scoring some goals quickly.
Yeah, and it's unlucky that we haven't been able to see all of that UCD is capable of. I have seen the likes of JTGM play before in the RLI series, and I know he's a really good player in threes, but he just hasn't been able to come out of his shell as much in this game or in this series tonight. I wonder if that's the fact that they're 5 goals down in this game. They were 1 goal down in the last game. Are they just waiting for those opportunities to open up for goal scoring, but maybe not creating those opportunities for themselves tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. And, for all of what we're saying about UCD and ways they can improve, you just have to give so much credit to Maynooth in the way that they're playing. I mean, look, a goal or two potentially coming just through a little bit of good fortune, but for the most part, they have been playing to absolute perfection in everything that they have been doing. The passing has been smoother. They've been controlling the play, moving the ball the way that they want. When it comes to even counter-attacking, they've been doing it well. And then even the pinching in instances, as you just seen there, has been perfect. Just always bearing down on the opposition's net. It feels like every time there's a significant hit, it's always on target. So something has to be done on the defense. You just can't let it run to hit a wall. And even in an instance like that, you're having players like Ryan, who scored a couple now, just constantly getting into those danger positions and they're really dominating the opposition now. I mean, 6-0. This is a really strong statement scoreline.
Yeah, and with 2.5 minutes left on the clock, it's going to be a question of how many more goals can they score. And it seems like they kind of have that teamwork going for them. As saying that, UCD scoring a goal for themselves to kind of, lessen that scoreline a little bit, but maybe might not be enough in this game. But like you said, keep saying, it's a marathon rather than a sprint tonight with the best of 7. So maybe a couple more goals for UCD. They can get a little bit more wind in their sails, kind of boost their confidence and go for those more goal scoring opportunities. Apologies.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, there's definitely so much time left in this series for them to pull this back and just, show what they're made of. But for Maynooth, I wonder how long can they keep this up for? It's a case of everything's going their way, they're playing the right way, but does there come a point where they take the foot off the gas pedal? Is there a point where the play style maybe has to change a little bit, or they decide to change it, or do they just keep doing what they're doing because it's working? And I mean, and for the most attacks from UCD than what we're seeing, there's never really any real threat, is there? Like, that ball is past the halfway line, but you're in no way worried about Maynooth and their defensive efforts yet when they go back in the offense here, just getting into such tricky positions as we see Ryan just again be exactly where he needs to be at the right time. That ball is just not cleared properly. Ryan is on the prowl and just sends that rifling into the back of the net, and I think that just sort of typifies the way that Maynooth are playing. They're just barreling down the sight line of the opposition right now.
Yeah, Maynooth are very dangerous on the attack. They have that team play in them, the communication. Nova scoring another goal, opening that scoreline by 7. Like, this is just, they're ruthless in their attacking force at the moment, and UCD can't really do much about it. As from what we've seen, they've kind of just, they've been able to stop a few from going in, but they're more concentrating on their defense to stop those goals going in rather than on their attack to create more goal scoring opportunities for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And with a minute left in this game now, you just wonder, where does this series go? Sort of a million questions you could ask. I mean, game 2, as we're seeing here, all but done. Anything that goes in is just a little bit extra for either side, as that was a good clearance off the goal line. But you know, if you're seeing the way the rest of this series could play out, if you're trying to go into this, say you're a coach for either one of the teams, you're going into game 3, what do you think both sides are going to be saying to each other here about how they have to play? Because no other game in the series, unless I'm proven horribly mistaken, but no other game in the series should play out like this. We won't have a 9-goal thriller that's as deep for either side.
Yeah, I think for Maynooth, it's possibly their coach is saying, come on boys, just keep the gas on the pedal. You've shown us what you can do. Just keep doing what you're doing. For Maynooth, for the UCD, apologies, it probably would be a case of, look, you've had 2 somewhat rough games where you've lost them, and then you need to just, be a bit more proactive about that attacking force when you come into possession of the ball, and kind of try and keep the ball towards the midfield and your opponent's goalposts.
Yeah, absolutely. And, seeing that game number 2 just gone, Maynooth winning, and winning by a country mile. I mean, you usually like to try and point out who are the star players in these instances, right? Who's the one that really pulled it together for those games. But I mean, every single player in that game 2 just played to perfection. And, I really have to go back to, because I remember mentioning him a couple of times, the way Ryan was playing in that game, scoring 3. I mean, the same as Nova. But talk about a poacher, just seemed to be really there in every instance, just getting up, and whether it was kind of getting a tap in or just kind of capitalizing on sloppy passing on the back line. I think Ryan was really just a danger player, and I think it's going to be a player that, even as UCD inevitably come more into this series, as they should, Ryan's a player that they always have to be scared of, because unless they are passing well or getting that ball consistently cleared up the pitch quickly, Ryan is going to be a player who's going to be really just pushing on that pressure.
Yeah, Ryan is sneaky and getting into those positions that he needs to be in for when UCD makes those saves, but is just in there waiting for the ball almost to be passed to him so he can get into those goal scoring opportunities and really slide it past their defenses once they're, they've got the ball out, but it's not out of danger.
Yeah, absolutely. But now on to this game number 3. Are things going to change for either of these oppositions, or are we going to potentially see a repeat of that game 2 and maybe have an early series on our hand? Maynooth off to an early start with a nice shot, but it is saved. And UCD already just kind of keeping themselves in this, making sure that they're playing a bit better on that defense, and now need to try and work on an attack of their own. But so far, Maynooth controlling the line. But I'm just saying that UCD are getting up a little bit there. But again, as we said before about them getting up, no real danger in how they're doing it. But in saying that, Caster Curse flying in from the halfway line there. The ball was left up in the air and has been sent into the back of the net, and UCD getting an incredibly important goal that was finished very well.
Yeah, that was a beautiful finish from JTGM there, just managing to slide it past his opponent, couldn't get a touch on the ball, and sliding it into the back of their net, giving them a lead that might prove to be, game-changing for them in this series tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. They need that lead, but I think more importantly, they need to hold on to this lead, because we have seen that Maynooth can score and they will score again. So UCD, they got to hold on well, play well defensively, but I think we'll also need to get a couple of more goals. Again, he's talking about the marathon, not the sprint. You're in this for the series, and you can recognize after a game 2, after really getting destroyed 8-1, that scraping by a 1-0 maybe won't cut it for the confidence in terms of where you go for the rest of this series. And already they do seem to be struggling as they are just about holding this back line. But again, we talked about just when they're going forward, Maynooth looks so dangerous on that offense. UCD, I just don't think their defense is cutting it. So yeah, maybe that best form of defense is offense for them, if they need to try and get this ball moved up the pitch. Yeah,
it seems to me that once Maynooth have the ball in towards UCD's net, it's kind of a case of they're just unrelenting. They're going for shot after shot after shot, and once if they don't get one, they're going for a second immediately. But UCD really need to try and stop Maynooth getting the ball to that side of the pitch, because that's the only way they're going to stop them from scoring goals.
Completely agree with that. And now UCD maybe with another chance, but it has been blocked, and there's Ryan trying to get it out. But the clearances, I have to say, from Maynooth haven't been as concrete in this game, but just there getting a moment where that counter-attack nearly worked, nearly getting a squeeze through, but a double demolition that could prove huge. But a massive bit of defensive work on the line there to get it cleared, and now another counter-attack coming in. The finish just not quite there. It was a brilliant move, but just didn't have that final touch. And now we're seeing this game again, sort of similar to what we saw in game 1, become a bit more of a back and forth frantic affair. But it is UCD with that all-important lead at the moment. Plenty of time for Maynooth, but UCD, I'm sure, given how tough this series has been so far, will be happy with what's happened here, especially after getting another goal there to make it 2-0 for them.
Yeah, they'll be happy with that kind of safety net. They're 2 goals up at the moment. They can, focus a little bit more on getting that defense picture perfect, stopping Maynooth getting those goals, getting into their kind of territory of goal scoring opportunities, and really just maybe take this game from them. Maynooth, they're probably hoping that they'll get 3 games in a row on UCD, but UCD just need to be very careful about their defense to stop those opportunities from presenting themselves.
Completely agree here. They need to shore up that defense, get it locked in, and as we say as well, just have it be something that they're confident will sustain, not just for the remainder of the game, but for the remainder of the series. And credit to them, they're getting the ball cleared way better now, which Maynooth does seem to be struggling with. I mean, again, you look at who's looking more dangerous on that offense, it still absolutely would say Maynooth, but the quality of clearances is just allowing for far more opportunities for UCD.
Yeah, it seems to me that something in UCD's brain has clicked a little bit, in that they're able to get those clearances and move the ball away from their own goal net a little bit better than they were in the first 2 games. So for their sake, hopefully they can keep this up and not run out of the stamina of keeping the ball out of their side of the pitch. That being said, Maynooth going for those goal scoring opportunities, trying to just slide it past and reduce that scoreline a little bit to get them back in this game.
Yeah, just trying. I mean, if they get this game 3, if they somehow manage to score 2 quick goals for an overtime and sneak it, that would be sort of a true nail in the coffin in terms of the confidence for UCD. But credit to UCD, it looks like they're going to be able to hold on Maynooth for this game 3, seemingly out of ideas in the way that they're playing. 15 seconds left, that clock is ticking down, and they look like they're going to be safe. A nice shot coming in from distance, ultimately cleared well, and again, barreling down here in the goal, proving they can be dangerous. And getting one back, 5 seconds left, not much time to work with. You're essentially going to have to rely on a kickoff goal if you want to take this to overtime. But again, just that little reminder of, hey, we can do damage against you when we get up that field.
Yeah, that's really showing UCD that, you know, they're, even though there's not much time left, they can still get those goals and put that kind of pressure on them. But it looks like UCD is going to take game 3, and they're going to be happy about that, bearing in mind that they had lost 2 games. They're kind of shaking up the system a little bit, showing Maynooth that they do have it in them to take games from them when they put their mind to it, and kind of, you know, make them think a little bit harder about what they're going to do going into game 4 here.
Yeah, completely agree, because, you know, as we talked about at the beginning of this broadcast as well, when you're playing a best of 7, it really is that question of, you know, questions and answers. And it seems like Maynooth kind of really had the answer to how UCD were playing after that game 1 and ran with it in that game 2. But now UCD flipping the script a little bit and posing some questions of their own. And now we need to see how malleable are Maynooth. Can they alter the way that they play? Because they definitely do need to change up their style a little bit if they want to come away with the series. And early on, nearly scoring a fantastic goal here on that game 4, but alas, not to be, and still 0-0. Very fast paced we're seeing here in this one. A big game for both of these teams.
Yeah, very fast, very good teamwork going on here. UCD managing to, you know, get a bit of a clearance on the ball, but Maynooth back at it again, trying to send it towards their opponent's net, get that goal, get the opening goal for this game, and kind of, you know, get a bit of a psychological lead on their opponents here. Really pushing for that goal, trying to get those opportunities where UCD aren't defending their net so heavily. And, well, here we see a counter-attack from UCD coming up the pitch, but ran out of boost, had to retreat a little bit to come back, and in the case of this, get back to try and help his team clear the ball from the attack of Maynooth.
Yeah, I mean, UCD, in the way that they went up for that counter-attack and the way that they're playing going forward here, there is not any real confidence in the way that they can clear this ball. Maynooth are just hammering down here on UCD. Again, credit to UCD, they are defending better, but it's how well you clear that ball is how you start that ability to get up the pitch to do some damage yourself. And so far, it's practically non-existent, and that is, you know, credit to Maynooth for that. They are dominating that halfway line, constantly giving themselves opportunities, teeing up for chances like that. Unfortunately, just were not put away. But again, look, on the halfway line, sending it straight up to Ryan, and the control of this ball in the opposition half completely coming from Maynooth. We've essentially had 2 straight minutes of a Maynooth onslaught, and UCD are being incredibly patient in that defense. But you have to say, Maynooth are also being patient in the way that they're attacking. They're never overcommitting, abandoning that halfway line to try and send a shot through. They're always making sure that they're there and ready for the next offense. And as they had to prepare for a defense there that had virtually no threat, they're looking pretty confident, and now once again moving this ball back up the pitch. And it's game 4, even though it's 0-0, it's been all Maynooth.
Yeah, it's been all Maynooth, is right. They kind of just have been on that attack, that unrelenting force of nature, going for those goals, trying to get the ball into their opponent's net. And UCD haven't really had the opportunity to go on the attack as much because they've been having to defend so heavily against Maynooth. And it's, you know, it's gonna wear them down eventually. Having to defend 3 men on the back line like that for so long, for almost, you know, 3 minutes now, it's gonna start to wear down, and it's gonna be a case of how much longer can they hold out.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a wear and tear game for UCD in the way that they're playing it right now. The defense being hammered down, and look, it's one way or the other. If UCD can pull this game back and get sort of like a counter-attacking goal and sneak a 1-0 in this game 4, it's a great story that boosts their confidence and kind of reassures them in their defensive game, which was definitely lacking back in that game 2. But if they concede at the end of this and lose a 1 or 2-0, that's a huge momentum killer. And speak of the devil, that one goes in with 1:18 left to go. UCD finally crumble in that defense, And this game could, as we just said, could be a huge momentum killer for UCD if they can't pull this one around.
Yeah, it looks to me like JTGM got a touch on the ball there, but just couldn't hold on to it as much, and Frolics taking full advantage of that opportunity as it presented itself to hit it into the back of UCD's net there. UCD going a bit more on the counter attack here, trying to get the ball up to Maynooth's side of the pitch, going for the net, but Maynooth's defense are not really being tried as much as UCD would hope. They're kind of getting the ball up to Maynooth's side of the pitch, but after that it kind of fizzles out a little bit. But here we see kind of a three-man attack moving very, very well up the field, getting that touch in, but again, Maynooth just there to stop it from becoming of anything.
Yeah, and I think it really is a case of going back to the drawing board, and where, you know, it's the great benefit of having like analysts come in to look at these games, because it is a bit of a head scratcher as to why UCD are not getting up this park with, you know, any sort of fluidity. Is it potentially, is there boost starving going on that we're missing, where, you know, Maynooth are just constantly getting maneuvered around the pitch, taking those boosts and just capping the pace that UCD can bring to this play? Or is it just simply they're just not on form in this game? But regardless of not being on form, a single sustained piece of offense for them, they managed to squeeze that one in, and with 3 seconds left, even this one up 1-1. All the hard work of Maynooth being undone at the death, and we could very well be seeing our first overtime of the evening.
Yeah, and overtime, depending on how you look at it, could be a blessing or a curse for UCD. They've been able to hold off Maynooth for so long throughout that game, but they had a moment there where their defenses slipped a little bit and Maynooth managed to score a goal. But if UCD can get the ball up into their opponent's side of the pitch and really put that push on them again like they just did, saying that Nova scoring the goal, winning the overtime for Maynooth, and just, yeah, there was an attempt at defense, but just wasn't good enough for this game.
Yeah, ultimately just not really being set up there in defense in the end up UCD, and Maynooth just, you know, a good finish. That ball goes up into the air off the wall, favorable bounce, and just a nice flick onto an area that wasn't completely covered. Again, I think you just have to give credit to Maynooth for moments like that. Ultimately, you just have moments as a defense where you're not completely set up, but it's how you capitalize on them. And, you know, that's one thing you have to say about Maynooth, is that going forward, granted, while it has been periods of real sustained offense and, you know, maybe not getting as many goals that game as they would have liked, they're really consistent in the way that they're playing, in just the sense of being clinical, that everything that they're putting up that pitch is just getting into an incredibly dangerous position, which I do think is haltering the clearance ability of UCD. So I think you have to give massive hats off to them just for the level of danger they're presenting every time that they're going forward, because I think ultimately, if you're faced with that consistently, you can only do so much on defense unless you're creating some attacking opportunities of your own.
Yeah, and Maynooth have been just on the attack, very much like you said, sustained attacking force throughout this entire series this evening, and just UCD haven't really had those opportunities. They've had opportunities to clear the ball and get the ball up to their opponent's side of the pitch and go for those goal scoring opportunities, but haven't really been able to capitalize on them as much, because Maynooth have been so aggressive with their attacking play and their defense up in the middle of the pitch.
Yeah, completely agree on that. And, you know, 3 minutes 45 left to go on this game number 5, if I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I do believe we're on game number 5. I think we're seeing a game now, an instance where both of these teams are kind of once again back to the drawing board, trying to bring something different. You know, usually, you know, you're wrapping up these games by this point, you're in that kind of crucial position of where this is it. But both of these teams have a few more games to play with, and with that, a few more chances to try some different things. But in saying that, Maynooth back to their old tricks of scoring, as they managed to send that one through, and with 3 minutes 19 to go, you know, even though it's been a real timid affair type of game, UCD have been pretty consistent and looking timid throughout the entirety of this series. And so they still just aren't looking like they're going to be able to offer anything that's going to really hurt Maynooth long term, other than a sneaky goal here or there.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a case of, I think Maynooth aren't too troubled at their goal line to, UCD have been putting that attack on them, but they've been able to clear it without much trouble, and it's just a case of how and when can Maynooth pick apart UCD's defenses to score those goals for themselves.
Yeah, and I do think that they're in a position where UCD, they are running out of options and they're running out of time, right? Because, again, you look at the way this series has gone. You're not going to win this series from sneaking 1-0s, 2-0s, or even like winning it 3-2. The way that this has played out, it's too long, it's too difficult, it's not going to happen, and it's going to drain you. And now in a position where if you're not winning this game and pulling an extraordinary comeback out, that you're finding yourself in a position where you're just one game away from a loss, where you haven't presented any real danger. So big switch-ups need to happen, and they need to happen quick. If anything, they could already be too late unless they've been saving something until now.
Yeah, maybe they have a few tricks up their sleeves that we haven't yet seen. Maybe they're just biding their time to kind of let the cat out of the bag on what they're actually capable of with those tactics moving forward. But like you said, it's getting a little bit too late. Saying that, JTGM with a beautiful finish, sliding it past Maynooth's goal line defense, and just sneak it into the bottom left corner of Maynooth's goal and bring the scoreline back up to a 2-1. So they're only one goal behind, a little bit more confidence going into this next kickoff potentially, and a little bit of wind in their sails.
Yeah, I completely agree. Getting a bit of wind in your sails, just a little bit of an opportunity to maybe pull yourself back into it. But also what we were saying about only presenting those one or two little opportunities that aren't necessarily hurting Maynooth. I mean, it was a good goal, but is it going to change much, especially when you're still conceding opportunities like that, where it was just an inch from being off that post and in? I mean, Maynooth just once again proving that at any point they could just come and score another goal and kill this game dead. UCD have to play this game perfect from here on in, not just in this particular one, but in the series on the overall. As now a minute 15 left to go, Nova going up, trying to do something on the offense, ultimately not happening, and now the counterattack is on. Great shot, but well defended. And UCD, they do smell a little blood here to pull back this series.
Yeah, and we see UCD and Maynooth are, engaging in the first rule of Rocket League. If you bump a car, if you kiss a car, you don't break it. So we see that in the middle of the field there, which brings it to a 2v2 at the moment. So can UCD make the most of this situation, not having to worry about a third defender on their goal line?
Well, it looks like they weren't gonna, but they saved it just about. I'm really impressed with the few bits that we have seen from Nova moving with that ball going forward. I mean, it just sticks that ball out when he is moving forward with that ball. The dribbling is just immaculate, and the way that they bring that ball forward really is just another level. And we're having another makeout session in the middle of the pitch there with 13 left to go, leaving us in a 2v2. Can either team capitalize on this? UCD have to go, and they have to go now, but they're not even out of their defenses as Maynooth barreling down, and ultimately it's going to leave this game 5 ending with another win for Maynooth, and now I believe 4-1 in the series if I am correct. So it's looking like it could be all but done for UCD unless they offer a massive switch up.
Yeah, it's seeming like UCD are kind of almost on their way out at this point. They've taken one game from Maynooth, which, credit where credit's due. They have managed to take that game from them, but it just doesn't seem like it was enough for them this evening.
Yeah, just wasn't enough. Ultimately, Maynooth coming away with the win there and the way that they were playing. And honestly, I think at the end of the day, you just have to look at it and just say Maynooth were playing at another level, right? I mean, that game number 2 is one that feels like it should just go down in the history books for being on form versus off form, and the way that they just managed to go forward and just score a whole heap of goals, both coming with a little bit of luck and then both coming with raw talent and skill. UCD definitely fought back in certain instances where they looked like they were going to do some real damage, but ultimately every little thing that they would offer in that regard, Maynooth just seemed to answer back with confidence. And ultimately, I think it was a hard fought game. It was a momentum drainer for UCD, but for Maynooth, you just have to kind of tip your hat to them and say that you really have something there as players to do some damage, because that was an incredibly strong performance.
Yeah, UCD, credit where credit's due. They had a very good defense at times throughout those games, but Maynooth managed to pick them apart and kind of get those goals that they wanted to bring themselves into the upper bracket semifinals in the next stage of these playoffs. Now, it's not over for UCD. They will be moved down to the lower bracket round where they can compete to try and get it into the lower bracket quarterfinals next time. But, you know, Zep, if you were to choose one player from this evening, who would you choose as your MVP of the day?
Oh, that is a tough one, because you really did have an instance of a whole team absolutely popping off. I really was a fan of Ryan when everything was going well, in the sense of being there as the poacher just to score a massive amount of goals. But there was a couple of instances where, in the way that I was just seeing Nova go up the field and the dribbling and then ultimately contributing to a few goals, I think it was just a real sort of playmakers, clinical performance, constantly taking that ball into danger areas in the more, should we say, harder fought games. You know, I think sometimes it's easier to look good when everything is going well, but when things are a little bit more on the line, when they could go either way, having that composure to be able to just calmly dribble that ball up the pitch or get it into danger positions, but still manage to get back into those defensive areas where it counts. I think it has to be Nova for me who takes that.
Yeah, Nova was definitely in those positions to create danger for UCD's defense. And well played to all players this evening from that matchup. We are going to go to a small intermission, but first I would like to thank some of our sponsors that help make what we do here at Irish Collegiate possible. So big thanks to Reraw, Play Aid, and Dogpatch Labs. And we will see you in a few minutes, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Ireland Esports Collegiate Winter Series, powered by Natives. Rocket League, round 2 of playoffs, the lower bracket we're going for. And we are seeing UCD again versus Belfast Met Crushers. So, interesting matchup. UCD are definitely going to be feeling a little bit tired after the last game they played. Sepp, how are you feeling about this game going forward?
Well, what I'm feeling about this game is that I'm just really interested to see how UCD are going to be able to bounce back. Do they have a point to prove after the series that they just played that didn't go their way? Or, as you said, are they tired after that last one? Could they potentially be feeling defeated? And could that be something that Belfast might capitalise on? I think it is just a case of waiting and seeing, as game number 1 will be getting underway just any minute now. So, yeah, I think we've got a good one on our hands. It's going to be hard to say which way this one is going to go. You can ultimately say that, yes, while UCD may be tired, they also might be slightly warmer going into this one, given the series that they just played. They'll know what it's like to be bombarded on that defense and just trying to hold on in areas. So if they get a little bit more freedom now to go forward on the attack and show what they're made of, maybe they might be fully ready and have that, well-rounded package together to be able to come back and get a decent result for themselves.
Yeah, now just looking at the Swiss stage standings or the results from the Swiss stage of play, and so UCD actually beat Belfast Met throughout the Swiss stage. So it's going to be interesting. Are we going to see a repeat here as Shark puts it in the net of his opponent to lead on a 1 goal against Belfast Met here?
Yeah, a great goal there to score early on. A goal that was needed for UCD if they want to do well in this series. Again, they do need to bounce back after that last series. Getting a goal early, the best thing they could do for themselves. And now Belfast Met are in a position where they're going to have to find an answer quickly, or even not that quickly, but maybe they just don't want to let UCD, find themselves and get comfortable. It'll be nice for them if they can get a goal straight away and keep this sort of a real back and forth game, because UCD growing confidence, that could spell some real danger, as we're seeing some really nice dribbling coming through here, and it looks like they'll continue with that ball and get decent enough cross in, but maybe a little slow, no one really there to capitalise. But again, as we spoke about in the last series in terms of teams looking more dangerous or not on the offense, it's now UCD who are really looking like they're prevalent on that offense.
Yeah, they're definitely a little bit warmed up after their series against Maynooth there. So seem to be taking a page out of Maynooth's book and going for that offense is the best defense, trying to get the ball up the pitch towards Belfast Met's net and really put themselves in those goal-scoring opportunities a lot more than they did in the last game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, just learning from their mistakes and just playing a better game. Granted, I don't think Belfast Met are going forward with the same level of finesse that we saw from Maynooth in that previous series, but regardless, that's something that is there for UCD to capitalise on and potentially take themselves further along in this series. But again, can't be counting Belfast Met out yet. There's a long way to go. Best of 7, and it's game 1 with 2 minutes gone, just about. And so much can change at this point, but UCD definitely looking the stronger of the teams to begin with, maybe just feeling a little more warm after the type of series that they had to play previously. As Belfast Met themselves get used to this game and show what they can bring, we may have a very tight series on our hands.
Yes, very tight indeed, as JTGM just gets demoed there, stopping that attack in its tracks a little bit. But they're still on the push, going for that second goal. It would give them a comfortable enough lead, bearing in mind we saw what they can do on the defensive. If they can, score another goal, open that, get a little bit of a cushion for themselves, they could go straight defense and really just sit on that for the rest of the game here.
Yeah, UCD, in that position where, we've seen them play the defense before and that they could do it well enough against pretty strong opposition. Granted, there is that what I'd almost call an infamous game 2 against Maynooth, but they could score a goal, perhaps score another as they just did, and then just sit back, defend well, and just take the momentum out of a game, sap the life out of Belfast Met, and maybe start seeing these games off. But a long way to go yet before they can start really seeing that as a strategy to take long term into the series. We are just into this game 1, but after scoring another nice goal there, and Belfast Met haven't really shown themselves to be a real danger or threat so far. They need to change that, because they do not want to go 1-0 down here against an opposition who are going to be really hungry to get a series win after how they played previously.
Yes, very hungry indeed. They're going for those goals. They're really on the attack here. I think if we were to break down the statistics of control, possession of the ball, in at least this game one, it seems that UCD kind of are holding onto the ball in the midfield section towards their opponent's goal, being able to open up those opportunities for themselves. As we see another goal from JTGM sliding in the net a little bit slowly, 5 miles per hour. He's managed to be there and get it past those defenders in that opportunity for himself. 3-goal lead. Are Belfast Met going to be able to recover from this? Are they going to have a response?
Yeah, I mean, so far it looks like if they're going to have a response, it's going to be in a different game in the series, because they really haven't figured out what to do here yet when it comes to the offense, and the defense just isn't working. UCD scoring goals, whether they be nice or scrappy, it is happening for them. And I think it is just a case of Belfast Met is like, yeah, we've seen you defend, but we need to see what you're going to bring forward on that offensive end, because it's been a very easy day in the park for UCD on that defending so far. And as I said before, we know they can defend. We have seen them kind of sustain themselves against barrages for minutes on end. So Belfast need to start sort of chipping away at that armor early if they want to start seeing those goals go through.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Just Belfast Met, sorry, I almost covered the move. Belfast Met really need to be putting that pressure onto UCD and kind of wearing them down a little bit in these early games, going so that they have that, you know, almost stamina ran out a little bit on UCD's side, so they can score those goals that they need on the other side of this best of 7.
Absolutely, and now with 11 seconds left to go and counting, it is still UCD just racing that opposition's net in that defensive area, not really letting up here, just taking that ball up into the air. No chance now for Belfast Met. Game 1 will be going the way of UCD, and that was a very confident performance from UCD, who absolutely needed that at this moment in time. If you were to read anything from a game 1, which is, you know, a risky thing to do, given that both of these teams could completely change it up as this series progresses, this could be one that UCD manages to pull through, because Belfast Met, they've shown nothing. The only solace that you would really take in this is that they have shown nothing, because they're going to show something at some point, and that could be something really dangerous. But they'd want to maybe start pulling that out of the bag in this game too, because they have a long series ahead of them, and they don't want to see it start being dragged out from under their feet early on.
Exactly. And it seems to me that UCD are kind of out for blood. You know, they lost that first game that we saw this evening against Maynooth. They're wanting to stay in this competition, bearing in mind that whoever loses in the lower bracket this evening will be eliminated and will not move forward into the lower bracket quarterfinals. So UCD are trying to secure that position for themselves and are really going for it, bearing in mind that they have had that loss. But maybe that first game win is giving them the confidence to kind of take this home for themselves and keep themselves in this competition. Saying that, very close opportunity for a goal there for Belfast Met, with UCD's defense there again to stop it in its tracks and get the ball cleared out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, that defense for UCD hasn't really broken a sweat as of yet, so we're just seeing the first instance of where they really have to pull the boots up and get something done. But nice defending there for the side of Belfast Met as well, which if there's anything that they could improve on from that game 1, again, they showed nothing on the attack, but maybe a couple of, or a bit more sort of defensive rigidity would be the way to go for them, and just stop UCD from getting through might be step 1. Seem to be doing okay in that so far, but UCD are just looking dangerous when they go forward. So it's sort of a counter to what we've seen with them in Maynooth in that previous series, to where they really didn't present much danger, but now nabbing the ball out of the air, nearly sending it through, but not presenting too much danger in that particular instance. A counter-attack coming in, but again, nothing really happening from it. And a minute and a half gone from this game, still plenty of time to go for both of these teams, but it has been a bit of a cagey affair where we're seeing moments going through the middle of the park where these teams look pretty dangerous, but then when it comes to putting that ball through the net, things get a little more sloppy. And if it keeps up like this, I think we're going to be seeing a pretty low scoring game 2 here.
Yeah, it seems like that both teams are, able to get the ball up to the other side of the pitch and be in that attacking moment, but just nothing quite comes of it. And whether that's a case of they both have really strong defenses, or it's a case of maybe a little bit of lack of confidence on the ball towards the opponent's net to kind of finish off that goal scoring opportunity. But it's going to be interesting to see. Like you said, I think this game too is going to be very low scoreline. I think it's going to be a case of one of the teams is going to score 1 or 2 goals, and that's going to be it for this game. But like we always say, we've got a commentator's curse, so we could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I mean, the commentator's curse, we've already seen it in action a little bit once or twice tonight. We could see it a little bit more as Belfast Met are kind of really just trying to force that goal through, and a bit more brute force coming through that centre of the park there from the cross, just trying to get it into the opposition's net, even if it just means barging through the opposition, but to no avail as of yet. UCD are holding on that defence, but this attack has been really strong from Belfast Met and finally paying off for them with a goal that rifles itself right into the top bins. A perfect shot that, you actually look at the positioning, it was defended well, but just so perfectly into that top corner that it's the only place that it could have gone to where it would have been saved, and that's where it went. So terrific shot to give Belfast Met their first lead of the series. Yeah, like you said, really good attacking play there. Really was a case of that top corner, not much you can do in that situation, and the UCD's defense on that was really good, just wasn't quite able to stop that from going in. But again, one of those goals, it's almost impossible to stop. But is it a case of UCD can come back from this? Can they score another goal? They have been looking very aggressive on their attacking play. They just need to pick apart Belfast Met's defense a little bit more to get that goal for themselves and even this game out. But yeah, Belfast Met going for another goal, it looks like, trying to increase their lead a little bit more with a minute left on the clock. Can they do it, or is UCD going to keep them from scoring again? Yeah, I mean, UCD could be primed and ready for a bit of a counter-attacking move. They may be really happy that Belfast are going forward, but in saying that, Belfast, they are looking really dangerous in some of those offensive efforts. But now, perhaps UCD going to have a chance, not really, as it's cleared up, and Belfast have definitely gotten warmer in this series and in this game too, showing they can be a real threat going forward and sleeping on the back line. We've talked about UCD having a pretty solid defense, but no one holding that back line safe. A nice interception and a simple finish down the middle of the goal to all but guarantee this game number 2 for Belfast Met. And folks, we certainly have a series on our hands.
Yeah, it's really ramping up. It seems that these teams are very evenly matched in their skill levels, being able to, if the UCD lose this game too, scoring a goal for themselves, 30 seconds on the clock, they might be able to pull it back and go to an overtime. But they're looking very evenly matched from what we've seen in these 2 games, skill-wise, compared to, the last game. There seemed to be, on Maynooth's side, a little bit more of a skill gap in the aggressive attacking play, but when it came to defenses, UCD were very much on the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit more even is what we're seeing here, but I think UCD again just showing in that attack the quality that they have in terms of just, even if the shots aren't in, they're so close that the rebound is practically there for the tap in. But with 10 seconds left to go, they need to do something with sending this ball in the air. They've given themselves a great opportunity. Will they need the assistance? It's cleared well. 2 seconds left. It's going up the wrong end of the pitch for UCD, and Belfast Met come away with game 2 to tie the series up. A vital game for them, but answering back with some nice goals, playing really well. And yeah, we're in for a real series on our hands here. UCD sort of exposed a little bit there, just exposing a little weaknesses that we saw Maynooth exposed before, but just from how that one's played out based off game 1 as well, you can definitely see a situation where both of these teams win more games.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting going into game 3. They've both got a win under their belt. It's going to be a case of who can inch out that little bit further. I don't think it's going to be a huge goal line here. It's going to be a case of who can make the most of those opportunities when they present themselves for goal scoring. saying that very close on Belfast Met's side, trying to get that goal just an inch forward, that little bit more above UCD, and secure an early game goal and try and hold on to that for as long as possible. But UCD very, very good with those clearances, getting the ball into the positions they want them, but nobody there to receive that pass.
Yeah, again, it's just a little more aggressive between both of these teams now. It is a back and forth affair where I think both teams have come close here, but it is Belfast Met who really seem to be feeling a bit of momentum in how they go forward. Whether or not they get anything from it is to be seen, because we've seen how UCD can go forward on a counter-attack as well and score a couple of their own. So I think both teams are recognizing that the opposition presents a danger, but is going for it anyway, which could lead to a very entertaining series. Perhaps there is a high-scoring game on if the clinicalness is improved from both of these teams. As I think ultimately we haven't seen many shots actually on the goal in this initial few minutes. We've been seeing the ball go forward a lot and be pinged up aggressively, but again with no real finesse in the end up. If that changes, we could be seeing the first high scoring game.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like the ball is being, both teams are very capable at moving the ball up to their opposition's side of the pitch, but those opportunities are kind of cut out by the defense very quickly and very swiftly from both sides, from both teams even. Both teams have very solid defenses. It's just a case of who's going to let slip first, and it's Belfast Met conceding a goal. UCD are managed to slip a goal past John Clare there on Belfast Met, opening the scoreline 2 minutes in. Can they hold on to this lead? Can they open their lead up a little bit more and score another one to give themselves a bit more of a cushion going through this last 3 minutes of Game 3?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great finish there. Hats off to him. Again, down the middle, it could have been a little more clinical to either side, but with the power that was put on it, just made it a difficult one to save given that position. Just capitalizing on being able to come at that one with power against someone who's ultimately standing still in that back net. And UCD capitalizing, nearly getting another there, as that this offense is looking terrific so far, but Belfast Met are hanging on. And can we see UCD sort of orchestrate a situation now where they control that halfway line and get a bit of a consistent attack going to where they can chip away at their opposition? So far it looks like that goal has reinvigorated them a touch in a game that, while frantic at the start, now over halfway through looked like it was coming to a bit of a standstill. But I'd say a goal in the game has once again given life to both of these teams, and I think we're going to be seeing at least another goal in this one. By the way it's playing, I'd be shocked if we finish at a 1-0.
Yeah, it was very scrappy towards the start of this game. Just both teams trying to get it past the net. Another goal. It's Belfast Met this time. The scoreline is evened out. This is one goal after the other. They've managed to reply, but who will take the lead? Can UCD come out on top and score another goal on Belfast Met, or is it going to be Belfast Met's second game to take throughout this series?
Yeah, I mean, Belfast Met just scoring a nice little goal there, not deep enough on the defense UCD, and they were just caught out. Nice finish into the bottom corner, but answering back themselves, just making sure they're in the faces and aggressive against the opposition, and almost rebounding a clearance right into that bottom corner with just over a minute and a half left to go. UCD instantly putting themselves back into the lead, and they seem determined to take this game 3, but will Belfast Met be able to stop them? They still do have time.
Yeah, that was a beautiful finish from JTGM, just being in that right position at the right time, managing to almost read that ball perfectly and take, full advantage of that opportunity. Here we see Belfast Met on the attack, and UCD cut it out, stop it from getting towards their net. That was very close for a goal opportunity. UCD managing to clear the danger for the time being, pushing it up the field towards Belfast Met's goal. Nothing comes of it. It's very evenly matched. It's a case of a clearance to a counter-attack to another clearance from the opposition.
Yeah, very even affair in our hands here. Both of these teams sort of excelling in different areas, but what it's ultimately leading to is a very similar game on both ends, where there's just intensity in the way that that ball is being played and the way that they're coming at this sort of play style, I suppose. Neither team really resting on their laurels in terms of defense, even though we're seeing pretty decent defensive moments and we're not seeing an abundance of goals. It's definitely a case that both of these teams are sort of favouring trying to get forward quickly, favouring sort of that fast-paced offensive play and trying to catch the opposition out of position rather than just trying to break them down through sort of slow possession of the ball. But in saying that, that strategy just hasn't worked as well for Belfast Met in this game number 3 as that time ticks down. 3-2-1. It is all but done for game 3 as UCD come away with that one to go 2-1 up in this series, and definitely the closest game I feel that we've seen yet.
Yeah, that was a very close game. It was a case of just reply after reply after reply there. UCD were down a goal and then they were up a goal after that, after Belfast Met managed to even it out and just were able to keep it from going into the back of their net. But going into game 4 now, it'll be interesting to see, can UCD hold that position, keep that momentum going, or is Belfast Met going to create that opportunity to score a goal on UCD?
Well, that was a very close opportunity here at the beginning of this one. Farron Shark almost actually taking it a little too far, obviously having to get a touch, but just taking it away from his teammate as well. And you know, one thing throughout this series that we haven't seen from either of these teams is a sort of a build-up of momentum when team scores a goal, going on and scoring another and looking more confident in the way that they're playing. No team has really put their foot down and established that as of yet, so it is UCD's chance to do so. And it has to be said that with the first 40 seconds gone, they are looking quite strong when they go forward and they're sort of consistently pressing, but Belfast Met will be able to counterattack if UCD aren't careful. We have seen UCD concede already in this series and being too far off their goal line, so very possible it happens again. But so far UCD looking confident, a minute gone, and perhaps this is the moment now where we're seeing that momentum kick in.
Yeah, UCD looking very aggressive, very dangerous on their attack. But here's an opportunity potentially cut out by UCD's defense there. Very nicely done. They're on the counter attack. Can they get a goal from this? No, Belfast Met there to cut it out. It's one save after another, and they're just going on the counter attack. Belfast Met scoring it, just managing to bounce it over UCD's defense there. Beautiful finish from the Jonkler.
Yeah, lovely finish there going forward on that counter attack. Maybe you could argue a little bit fortunate with the positioning, but there's no fortune about that. It's all the placement. It's all about being aware of where you need to be at the right moment. Belfast Met scoring a very good goal, and UCD failing to capitalise on the little bit of momentum they seem to be garnering, but now maybe preferring to be a little bit of the underdogs and playing on the back foot. Could they even this up once again, or will Belfast Met smell blood and try and send this game 4 away and have it be their one to take the, I believe, would be 2-2 in the series, where ultimately I think that scoreline would be deserved given how tight it is, as Belfast now seemingly having a bit of confidence in themselves as they're going to send it into the goal for another one, just squeezing it through. And yeah, it seems to be a case of whenever a team scores in this series, that for the next 30 seconds to a minute, they seem to play with way more confidence. It's rarely led to a second goal. We've always seen it be evened up. But in this instance, Belfast managing to get another goal off the momentum that they've gained. And a very good one at that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's a case of after that initial goal happens, it's very aggressive play from the team that has scored, getting into those positions, those dangerous positions to try and score another goal. And like you said, we haven't seen really this evening, or at least in this series, that opportunity to score another right off the back. But UCD coming back with a beautiful response there. Amazing teamwork going into that goal. Shark manages to just sneak it in under the crossbar to score on Belfast Met. Are they going to be able to, like we said, that 30 seconds or so of just really aggressive, confident attacking play, are they going to be able to even out this scoreline moving forward?
Yeah, we'll see as it gets back underway. Shark, I mean, that was an immaculate little touch just to send it past the two defenders and in under the crossbar. But Belfast potentially looking to answer back, not able to there. And the clearance maybe not the best. This is something that UCD could capitalize on if they go forward. But Jonkler with a good swooping defensive move there. And a nice shot coming in as well. But Shark is there for the defense. And what I will say between both of these teams throughout the course of this series, the quality has certainly improved as we have gone on. Both of these teams having some terrific moments and both of them looking really dangerous as well. UCD, it is absolutely on the cards for them to get another, but the same can be said with Belfast. They could kill this game. It is possible as they go forward, but that is a great clearance. As both teams, I think, really smelling blood now, thinking that they could come away with this one, as it's now UCD trying to go up, but that is cleared. A minute 20 to go. This game can still go either way.
Yeah, they're really trying. Both teams are at each other's throats, really trying to get those goals into the back of their opponent's nets. I think they both smell blood at this point. They're trying to secure their position in the lower bracket for the rest of, or until at least the next game. And JMS, so clean with that finish. Just managed to get it in the goal above both the defenders off the crossbar, and evens the scoreline up for them. It's 2-2 with a minute left. Are we going to see an overtime, or is UCD going to be able to capitalize off that brewing confidence in them to score another goal and open this scoreline? They're going for the attempt, not quite there. Belfast Met able to clear that out, but it's not out of the danger zone just yet. Going for another opportunity there, but sadly snuck away from them back towards their own goal. JTGM able to cut that out a little bit, but not quite getting the clearance he wants. Brennan Shark there to stop that pass. Belfast Met are looking very dangerous on this ball. There it is, the goal they were seeking for. The Jonkler sneaks it in past the defenders and manages to bring their lead back once more.
Yeah, just a nice little period of offense there from Belfast, just kind of hammering down on that goal, getting over the opposition. And UCD, for all the hard work and quality they've shown on the offense, it is their defense that seemingly let them down this game. And a bit of a shocker considering how well they have played defense for the most part throughout this evening. However, Belfast, I think, upping the quality a little bit of what they're bringing on that front end, and it is doing the damage as now they look to maybe go forward again. 10 seconds left. They are controlling the ball in the opposition's half, but they need to keep it there, and that's a great touch. That's just going to send that in the air. Now 1 second left. UCD need to keep it high and they need to send it home, but it's not going to happen. Belfast Met come away with game number 4. What a series.
What a series indeed. It's all evened out. If I'm not mistaken, it's 2-2 in games tonight so far. Going into game 5, it's very closely matched. It's, they're both teams are just so in each other's faces, a little bit scrappy at points, but the defenses on both sides are just there to cut out those opportunities when they seem dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think we're just really seeing now in this series just a real kind of back and forth. I talked about before, but both of these teams playing quite differently and the different qualities kind of linking up for a very similar game. But I think as this series has evolved now, we're seeing these teams really just start to play in very similar ways to each other and kind of go off script a little bit. It feels like an off script game where things are just becoming really scrappy, and we're seeing players kind of on an individual level do things really good, but we're not really seeing any, at least from what I'm spotting, at least real team tactics come through, or team efforts, or well-worked group goals. I think both teams have done a good job at just nullifying each other in terms of maybe what they want to bring to the game as a unit. And now the teams are just relying on these moments where they're able to get in there on an individual.
I think it's very well put there, in that it seems like they're individual goal scorers, but not necessarily, the teamwork might not just,
we just
say that. There. That being said,
starts
sneaking it in, getting a beautiful touch. The Jonkler passes it over, starts getting the goal. Oh, the commentator's curse strikes again, and that is a very early goal for Belfast Met, giving them an advantage going into game 5 here.
Yeah, I mean, look, we said it would happen. We said it would happen, that the caster curse was going to happen again this evening, and it absolutely has. That's probably the best well-worked team goal of the evening. A terrific pass, an immaculate finish, and a 1-0 lead with not even 40 seconds gone. Clearance coming in, and you know, I have to say, UCD in the last, I would say, combined 5 minutes of gameplay, including that previous game, even though they've scored a couple of nice goals up front, defensively, they're looking really shaky, and I think Belfast Met are sensing that now, as they're starting to have some sustained pressure at times going up, and then the counter-attacks, they do look really dangerous. So UCD, they need to sort of calm it down a little bit on that defense, and I think going through the rest of the games in this series, need to start conceding like none a game. Could have worded that better, but they need to start like conceding very little if they want to come away with this series, because it is looking like Belfast are going to be able to score more here.
Yeah, I think potentially what's happening, at least in my opinion, is that UCD are either very good on the attack or very good on the defense. They can't seem to, you know, put the pieces of the puzzle together to be good at both at the same time. And I think that comes down to rotation gameplay. They're not able to rotate as fast as they possibly would like to from that attacking play into a defensive when Belfast Met get that clearance from their own goal towards UCD's goalposts.
Yeah, it's seemingly like that could be what's happening here. It is just sort of like a slowing down, if you will, of that transition. And I think what you see from a lot of the great teams is that they transition flawlessly. Like it almost looks like, hey, when did this transition even happen? It's just instant defense to offense, or vice versa. They really just keep things flowing seamlessly. But again, I think that goes back to the nature of what we were talking about, right? This game being very scrappy between both of these teams. You know, I think we're just seeing, you know, because of that, some things that you maybe want to see again as a team when it comes to rotations and being able to set up together. You're seeing some of that just be cancelled out as you know, going back to why the goals are coming in. They just, for the most part, seem to be answers that people are providing on an individual basis. But in saying that, Belfast Met coming in with another 2-0 up now, and I have to say, through this last, what would be 7-8 minutes now of the series as an overall, they've been looking like the better team. UCD feel like maybe they're falling asleep here. Could they have run out of gas in the tank given the series that they played previously?
Yeah, that is a potential worry for UCD, being that they had that game beforehand. They might have run out a little bit of stamina on this series now. They're kind of, you know, Belfast Met have been able to score 3 goals on them with no response. Is that tiredness kind of starting to kick in and wear down their defenses potentially?
Yeah, it's looking like Belfast have grown into this series quite well. UCD have offered up much of what they can, and you know, I do think the ultimate crux of that is coming from the fact that UCD, I think, are struggling to play as a team at the moment. To get it coming really down to those individual moments, and while that was the case for Belfast, it does seem to be coming together a little more now as a unit, to where they're finding what's working, they're continuing to do it, and UCD are almost non-existent in the defenses. They nearly give away another there, almost a free goal handed to Belfast, but now maybe a counter-attack of their own on the cards, but not really happening as Belfast now passing between each other, controlling that pitch. It's almost like they heard us say we haven't seen enough teamwork, because they are locking down this pitch and just shutting out the opposition. Like, for how good UCD have been on the attack when they've had moments in this series, I can't remember the last time they've had a good attack.
Yeah, it's been a little while since they've had that opportunity to score a goal. And you know, where credit's due, they have been very good throughout the past, you know, the 2 games that they've played now. First against Maynooth, they were very good defensively, and against Belfast Met in the first couple of games in this series, they were very good attackingly. Saying that, JTTM just managing to slide in a goal on his opponents there, and really just trying to claw his way back up with his team, you know, trying to claw their way back to even this out a little bit. But yeah, it seems like they've had really good moments of play, but they're just they're getting tired. They're getting worn down a little bit more than they would like to, and with each goal that's scored against them, it's got to knock the confidence a little bit more each time.
Yeah, I mean, that confidence is definitely frailing now, to say the least. And again, even the goal that they scored there, a nice goal, but sort of an individual goal reliant on someone just closing down the opposition and doing what they need to do in that instance. But we're not really seeing a case of this team coming together and saying, hey, we need to switch up what we're doing here. We need to really work together. You know, even on that offense there, what we literally just seen, they did have a good opportunity to be aggressive onto that ball and send it forward quickly, but looking like they didn't even really know whose ball that was to go for in that instance. Maybe a bit of a miscommunication, or just slowing down to the point that Belfast can capitalize on it, win that ball back, and ultimately run down this timer to the point there's absolutely no way UCD can pull it back. And as we finish that game number 5, UCD take that one and go 3, or Belfast Met, should I say, sorry, take that one and go 3-2 up. And the way the series is panning out, I have a feeling this next game could be the last one unless UCD have one last card to play.
Yeah, I think that UCD's teamwork is possibly breaking down a little bit here. You know, like in that instance we just saw where 2 people kind of went for the ball, but then both pulled back, not knowing who was going for the ball. It seems like potentially the teamwork, the team communication is breaking down a little bit, and they need to get on that and fix it soon, or else this could be the last game they play in this series.
Absolutely, and this one is underway, and a scoring opportunity nearly coming in twice, but good saves from Belfast Met. You know, one thing that we haven't really talked about is that in a while at least is the defensive capabilities of Belfast Met, which has certainly improved throughout the entirety of this series. And you know, if they really want to come away with this game, you could say that if they can manage to still do well on offense, get a goal or 2, but then really show that final area of the game that they've improved in their defense and sort of lock down for sort of a flawless hold, then I mean, obviously that would be the series done anyway, but that's a real momentum sapper for UCD, and would be really telling of how they've just kind of fallen off through the course of this series, where at one point it looked incredibly evenly poised between these teams.
Yeah, I think if we look back to game 1, it seemed that UCD were out for blood. They had that loss against Maynooth, and they were kind of almost trying to get a redemption series out of themselves, but you know, they had a bit of a lead on Belfast Met coming into that first game. Now it seems to have fizzled out. They're in this, you know, game 6 now. They're very capable on their defense. They're not letting Belfast Met get anything in on them just yet, but definitely a knock to the confidence almost has happened to UCD somewhere throughout these games, and they're being, you know, they're kind of maybe learning from their mistakes a little bit, but they need to be able to capitalize on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they need to start scoring. They need to do it now, but that is so unfortunate for them. And look, we've seen those ones happen before, but when you're in UCD's position, when you're just looking for a little bit of good fortune, the last thing you want to see is a pinch just rifle itself back the wrong way. And that is what has happened here. Nearly 2 minutes gone. A vital must-win game for UCD, and a bit of misfortune besmirching their side. And now they're once again chasing a game.
Yeah, I think that does come down to misfortune. Very well pinched, but also, you know, you hate to see it as a player coming, having those goals scored from so far away, and nothing. Your defense just isn't there to stop it in its tracks. But saying that, JMS able to sneak in another goal, even the scoreline a little bit, and you know, puts them still in this game. They're not done yet. They've still got fight in them, and they're showing Belfast Met that is the case.
And you have to give hats off to JTGM there for knocking the goalkeeper off the line when that shot was coming in. With the power of that shot, it was looking very possible that could have been saved if it wasn't for that moving out of the way. So having a good shot, making sure to stay on the line then and clear off that goalkeeper to even it up. But Belfast again looking aggressive on the offense, trying to answer straight back. And now once again we're seeing the pace sort of pick up of both of these teams. With it being even, this game has turned scrappy. Belfast realizing that they could end it right here, right now, and UCD realizing that this is the chance they have to take it all the way and give themselves a chance of staying in this one as they look to score again. The offense looking dangerous when they get it. It's just starting to become a bit few and far between up until now. But Belfast also when they go forward, maybe being dangerous. Two huge mistakes there from Belfast, gifting UCD a goal. And we talk about a little bit of that misfortune that happens, sort of a double pass back error there, handing UCD the lifeline that looked like they had lost with that initial unfortunate pinch.
Yeah, and that unfortunate goal from their own, from Certs there, against Belfast Met, just not what you want to see, at least in this stage where Belfast Met have the opportunity to lock this down, lock in their place in the lower bracket quarterfinals, but letting a goal from their own team slip in is just not what you want to see. UCD are going to be happy with that if they can lock down their defenses and stop Belfast Met from scoring on them. Going for goals still, but they've got a bit of a cushion now. They can kind of ease off the attack, maybe lock down those defenses and stop goals from coming in. But it seems like they're going on the offensive here and trying to score another goal, get themselves a bigger lead and stay in this series.
Yeah, maybe just trying to, you know, swing this one around and show that, yeah, we've got the confidence to go forward now and take this series. Maybe trying to get a bit of momentum going in to the final moments of this series, as they have to defend once again there, but a demolition coming in on the line. Is this something that's capitalized on? It isn't per se, as Belfast go back to their own half to try and orchestrate another attack. And what you do have to say is that Belfast, in terms of the possession, in terms of the pacing of this game, are definitely still controlling it, but UCD sort of fighting against the current, against the waves at the moment, and just about saving that one. 35 seconds left for them to take this game and take it into game number 7, but Belfast Met are certainly smelling blood, and if they get another offensive chance here, they can most certainly take this one to overtime at the very least.
Yeah, it feels to me that Belfast Met are definitely creating those opportunities for themselves to score, and UCD is there to save them, but there have been a couple instances here in this game that UCD have only just managed to save those goals from going in, whereas before we had seen them be able to lock down that attack and stop it from coming of anything.
Absolutely, and now it looks like this will be touchdown, and it is. UCD take game number 6, and ladies and gentlemen, we are going all the way to a game number 7. Both of these teams having moments where they look like the stronger side, and both of them looking very evenly matched in certain instances as well. And even though Belfast Met were controlling the pace of that game, UCD scoring some crucial goals and being able to hang on in defense mean that they have a chance to sneak this one at the death. Game number 7 about to get underway, and it really could go either way, because again, if this series goes exactly like that, or if this game goes exactly like the previous one did, we could still see a very strong Belfast Met performance where UCD ultimately score 2 goals, win it, and then you have to argue, well, who was the better team? It'll be very hard to say.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. Definitely a case of Belfast Met seemed a little bit stronger of a side in that last game, but UCD managed to bring it back for themselves after being down in the goal line for so long and taking that game from them. So the pressure's definitely on. It's a case of who will stay in this competition now. And it's anyone's game, really. They're so evenly matched throughout the entire 7 rounds or 6 rounds we've seen. And it's looking like Belfast Met is trying to put that attack on UCD, trying to break down their defenses early on and score a goal on them. But UCD had the opportunity to come on the counter-attack, but nothing comes of it.
Yeah, and with a minute gone, you know, neither team really managing to break through as of yet. You know, both teams, I'm sure at this point as well, are feeling the pressure while they're comfortable in the way that they're playing. You know, they realize the importance of this. They realize that if they leave that goal line unattended, it could be the end of their night and the end of their series. So they want to try and just make sure that, you know, there's no silly mistakes made. We saw a couple of mistakes come in that previous game, and they do not want that to happen again, as that shot not really going anywhere. Again, it was a good opportunity, but now Shark on the counter attack doesn't go well though, and nearly sneaking in the top corner there, but just about going out, and then JTGM with a good save, and Belfast now looking dangerous in this attack with a bit of sustained offense. How will UCD be able to hold on?
Yeah, Belfast Met definitely trying to get their players in the right positions to make a break for it. Going for the goal. They've hit the back of the net. The Jauntler has managed to score, opening up this scoreline in this final game. Can they hold on with this momentum? Can they keep it going?
I mean, it was a great goal. It was well worked. Again, as soon as they get a bit of sustained offense, they manage to score. That's whether it's a case of that they hold on, or do they try and go for another one and send this game to bed. I mean, we've seen how well UCD can play on offense, so maybe for Belfast, the best form of defense is an offensive effort. It'll be very hard to say what's the right way to play. It's up to both of these teams now, as with 2 minutes 50 seconds left to go. It's all or nothing as UCD have to try and claw their way back in.
Yeah, UCD being able to get those clearances but not being able to take advantage of them. A nice demo there. Can they take the opportunity from it? Shark scoring a goal, evening the scoreline. It's one after the other in these games.
Yeah, and a really well offensively worked effort there from UCD, just getting a lot of bumps in everywhere, a demolition and bumps that just completely cleared that goal for it was ultimately completely free. And we did see them do that before in the previous game to score a goal. So it's definitely a strategy of theirs to get in and sort of work together to just make sure everyone is knocked out of position to get those simple tap-ins. And, you know, for speaking earlier in the series about how a lot of the goals have come from moments of just individuality, that's really changed in this last couple of games, where we're seeing teams now really come together as a unit and employ strategies that do seem to be working, as we're seeing kind of back and forth questions and answers when it comes to teams scoring against each other and not really being able to sustain leads or go too far ahead themselves.
Yeah, definitely been a case of the teamwork has come together in these past couple of games and really tightened up a little bit. But it'll be interesting to see who can edge out that little bit further. Belfast Met looking very aggressive on the attack, but UCD have their defenses kind of tightened down. They've battened down the hatches quite a bit now since the last couple of games. Who's going to take this opportunity? Who's going to make that opportunity for themselves to score and take this series as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, look, if Belfast Met get another period of sustained offense, I'd be very worried if I was a UCD fan. But UCD have proven that when they get their few moments where a good cross comes in and they're up on the other side of the pitch as a three-piece, they can do some real damage. But it's whether or not they want to leave that goal line unattended and run that risk of a counter-attack. That ball just going a bit harmlessly wide, but another cross in and a good clearance from UCD. But it looked like Belfast Met will be able to get that one back in. They're controlling that halfway line now, which is a prelude for danger, as Certs is going to try and do something with this. But again, we talk about the players. It's great demos coming in, but ultimately a good save in the end up. But another shot going to come in. Will it be saved? It won't. 40 seconds left to go. Belfast Met taking another goal. And as I just said about that sustained offense, that it was going to be dangerous, and they made it so. Nearly getting the save in there, JT, but just not getting enough on it, and that could be that. If UCD are to answer back, they have to do it now, or it's all but over.
Yeah, that play was... There was a brilliant save there from UCD, being in that position to cut that ball out, but just not being able to clear the danger from their side of the pitch. And Belfast Met taking full advantage of that situation to score themselves another goal and open the scoreline. If UCD can't respond within the next 20 seconds, it's all but over for them, and they will not be moving forward in this competition. 10 seconds on the clock. The countdown is on. Can they score? Oh, it's Belfast with another, securing their victory, unless UCD can get two very quick goals.
And congratulations to Belfast Met on that one. They played that really well. And a cross coming in, a poacher right there to send it into the top bins. And it's been a hard-fought game for both of these teams, with 5 seconds ticking down. I think we have to say it now. Congratulations, Belfast Met. Commiserations to UCD as they put the cherry on top of the icing, on top of the cake. Belfast getting a 4th tier at the death. meaning that they will take this series in the final game. What a series that we have had here, folks.
7 games, so many goals. It was down to the wire so many times throughout this series, but Belfast Met just managed to sneak a couple more goals past UCD than UCD would have wanted to secure their victory this evening. But, you know, well played on both sides. Both teams were so evenly matched, and they had those moments of prowess throughout the pitch on both ends of the spectrum, you know, in the defense and in the attack. But it just seemed that it couldn't quite click for UCD at the end there, and Belfast Met took full advantage of that.
Yeah, I think you put it absolutely perfect there. Belfast Met, look, they had to play the long game. There was moments where UCD were scrappy and they managed to pull it back. There were moments where UCD actually looked stronger. Again, as we were saying at the beginning of the series, UCD looked like a team who had a point to prove after the previous series we saw in the evening. But as Belfast Met grew into the game, UCD perhaps got a little worn. I think it was fair to say that in the last 2 games, even though it was a back and forth, that Belfast Met were kind of controlling the pacing of the game, and whenever they had an opportunity of where they were on the attack for more than 20 seconds, it usually resulted in a goal where UCD just weren't really able to handle them. And then in a couple of instances as going forward, they may not have been clinical enough, which was ultimately a killer for them, where Belfast Met were going up in those final few games. When they had a shot, they made it count, whereas UCD, you know, they had a couple of missed ones, then tried to rely on knocking the opposition out of the way, which worked for a lot of crucial goals, but they were never able to get up towards the end and sustain an offense, control the game from the halfway line, and score a couple to kind of push Belfast Met away from the strategies that were working for them up until that point. It was always a scrappy goal here or there that kept them in it, maybe helped them sneak a game, but never really helped them grow into the series at a time where they really needed to just kind of get a grasp of it and say that it was theirs.
Yeah, I think where the UCD shined today was in both games. Even if we look back at the first game we saw against Maynooth, is their defense. Their defense was so key to keeping them in those games for as long as they did. But it was just those moments where Belfast Met managed to kind of break that defense down and work as a team in those, you know, we talked a lot about those moments where it was individual goal scoring opportunities, but they managed to bring it together at the end there and play as a team. Really well done and really well played from everybody we've seen tonight as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to tip your hats off to every single team that's played here tonight, and you know what we've seen so far throughout the entirety of the season. I mean, we've seen some great games, and I think there's plenty of more yet to come.
Exactly. Now, before we leave off, I would like to say a thank you to some of the other sponsors that you will see on screen now, who help what we do, or help make what we do possible. So a big thank you to KOKA, GG Machines, and Stacks. And of course, we will be bringing you more playoffs next week. So the upper bracket semifinals, if I'm not wrong. Hold on, I will check that. Yes, the semifinals for the upper bracket and the quarterfinals for the lower bracket will be next week here on Irish Collegiate Twitch. So be sure to not miss it, and we'll see you next week.
Being treated like you don't belong is a reality.